Hi there, and welcome to Master of Horror. These are 3 true paranormal stories in the rain. I would like to point out that all stories are 100% true, and most of them are from my own experiences and what I've heard. Please like and subscribe so you can hear even more scary, true, untold paranormal stories. I thank you for being here, and I hope you can become part of Master of Horror. Okay, now, let's begin. Scary, true, paranormal story number 1, The Club. Around the 1950s in Corpus Christi, Texas, my great-grandfather Pedro was outside one night playing his accordion. He was really good at playing the accordion, so much that it caught the attention of a passerby. It was a man walking around the block, and he noticed the talent that Pedro had. The man introduced himself and asked Pedro if he's ever been in a band before, and my great-grandfather said yes, but at the moment, he wasn't in a band nor was he working. The man that was speaking to Pedro, my great-grandfather, had a trench coat with the 1940s hat. The man gave him directions to the club that was nearby in Corpus Christi and asked Pedro if he wanted to perform with his band at the club the following night. My great-grandfather had never been to that club before. He was really excited and accepted the invitation. The following night, he got ready and packed up his accordion and made his way to the club around 10:30 that night. When he opened the doors and walked in, he said it was loud and there were so many people dancing and drinking. The only thing he mentioned at first was that everyone was wearing old clothing and it was freezing cold in the club. He said he made his way on stage and saw the guy he spoke with the night before playing an instrument on stage. My great-grandfather was really nervous, yet he was eager to start playing his accordion, especially since he knew the song that they were playing. He said he took his accordion out and started playing. But about 5 minutes into playing music and watching the people dance, he began to feel uncomfortable, as if everyone was watching him all at once. He said that's when he turned over and noticed the singer and looked at his feet. At that moment, his heart stopped. He said the singer had hooves for feet, and as he turned around to look at the rest of the band, they all had animal feet. The person playing the drums, he noticed, had chicken feet. He looked at the people dancing, and they all had the feet of an animal. He looked down at a woman who was dancing in the front, and she had pig feet. His face went cold, and he said he could no longer move his body. He said at that moment the music stopped, and everyone in the club looked at him with a straight face. He said that he felt as if you were going to die. The fear that was in him could not be described through words. The lights started flickering in the club, and that's when he ran out of the club and heard laughing behind him. It was as if everyone in the club was laughing at him. He left his accordion case behind with some other belongings, and as soon as he ran out the door, he began running down the street screaming. When he made it home, he told my great-grandmother what he saw at the club, and she did believe him. He wasn't able to sleep all night because of the trauma that he experienced that night at the club. But the very next day, he went to the club to get his accordion case that he had left behind. And if anyone was there, to his shock and surprise, the club was shut down and boarded up as if it had been closed for many years. He went to speak with some people at the city hall and found out the club burned down 10 years prior. More than 100 people burned alive in it, including the band members. He was able to get a hold of a picture of the band that was playing the night of the fire, and lo and behold, the man that invited him to the club that night was the leader of the band in the front of the picture. This is a true story, and yes, it's 100% paranormal, by my father about his grandfather. Scary, true, paranormal story number 2, Area 51. In the mid-1990s, in a suburb in Nevada, this guy and his wife and 2 kids used to live down the street from my house. His name was John, and we were pretty good neighbors. We weren't the best of friends, but every time he had a barbecue, he would invite me and my wife. So one weekend, I had this Labor Day barbecue, and we all were getting pretty drunk. I remember we were sitting around my barbecue pit, talking and laughing and stuff like that, and John was getting pretty wasted. There was about 4 or 5 of us in total. John was laying on the grass looking up at the stars, and I was sitting closest to him. He pointed to a star and said, "Hey, do you know what the name of that star is?" I told him, "No, I don't." He said, "It's called Andromeda, or something like that." He then said, "Do you know aliens live on the star? They're not grays. They're actually a different type of alien race, almost like ours but taller. They are here on Earth with us, and I actually work with them." I started laughing and was thinking that this guy had a little too much to drink. I said, "Where do you work, buddy? If you don't mind me asking." He said, "Area 51. I was like, "What's that?" He said, "It's a really high-level classified military base that aliens live there, and they work with us." I thought he was just drunk, but then he said something that scared me to the core. He said, "We're probably being watched right now in the sky. They have invisible UFOs now, and they can hear pretty much anything and everything we do." He then passed out. His wife came to get him that night. Me and another buddy of mine helped carry him to the house. His wife thanked us and closed the door. I made my way back home and started cleaning up the trash and empty cans in the backyard. As I was doing this, I heard a dialing electrical noise right above my head. When I looked up, I saw a craft-like object in the sky. I rubbed my eyes and looked back in the sky, and it was gone. I began to doubt myself and suspect it was probably my imagination. I also remember what John had said earlier that night, but then I realized he was shit-faced drunk. I made my way inside and fell asleep on the couch. But the following morning, I saw that John had left his keys on the ground in the grass, and I went over to his house to return them. As I was getting closer to his house, I noticed both of his cars were gone. Then when I came close enough to his house, I saw through the window that his house was empty, as if he moved out overnight. His garage door was also open with everything cleared out. I opened his door to his house and stepped in. There was not one piece of furniture. The fridge was empty as if it was never lived in. Everything was gone, even his wife and kids. There was no sign of anyone living there. I later put everything together, and maybe he was telling the truth. I know they had to have heard him that night. I hope, if anything, he's okay. This really did happen, and if no one believes it, it's totally fine. I wouldn't either. Scary, true, paranormal story number 3. Stranded in the woods. Hi, my name is Jason, and I moved out to Killeen, Texas about 10 years ago. I lived in the country, and when I say country, I mean the literal country area. My nearest neighbor was about 10 minutes from me. The way to get to my trailer has really sucked. It was surrounded by woods. The road was a dirt road that was no wider than my car itself, with branches and trees nearly scraping my car when I would pass by. The worst part about living in the country was the fact that I never had phone reception. Only at home I had phone reception through my Wi-Fi. I would get out of work really late, Sometimes I would have to drive back home as late as 4 a.m. I dreaded driving back home from work. It's 1 hour of pure wilderness in the pitch dark. One night I was having car trouble, and the worst thing imaginable happened. My car completely broke down. I was driving on my way home, and I was in the middle of the wooded area when my car completely stopped on me. I could not start it. I turned off the lights, and it was pitch black. I couldn't even see my hands in front of my face. That's how dark it was. It was about 2 o'clock in the morning, and I knew I was going to have to sit it out till either someone came by or the sun came up. But I made the decision to not leave my car under any circumstances. After about 30 minutes, I decided to lay down in the back because I could see movement in the woods around the trees. I was really scared. I locked my car doors and I laid down with my eyes closed. I heard something walking around my car. This frightened me to the core. I literally felt my face go cold and I was shaking. And I knew I was going to have to sit it out till either someone came by or the sun came up. But I made the decision to not leave my car under any circumstances. After about 30 minutes, I decided to lay down in the back because I could see movement in the woods around the trees. I locked my car doors and I laid down in the very back seat on the floor, hoping that nothing could see me. While I was laying down with my eyes closed, I heard something walking around my car. This frightened me to the core. I literally could feel my face go cold, and I was shaking. The handle to my car door started shaking as if something was trying to open the front door. I remember trying my hardest not to move or make a sound, but I literally could hear the sound of my heart pounding in my chest. Whatever it was, walked around towards the back door where my head was and started to open the back door. To my horror, I forgot that the back door does not lock, and it literally opened. I kept my eyes closed, and whatever it was can now kill me. My head was face down on the floor, and I could hear breathing, heavy breathing. I knew whatever it was saw me already, even though it was pitch dark and I was laying on the ground. I heard a small growl, and that's when I felt something grab my shirt and pull on it. I started screaming and yelling for help. I couldn't see what it was. All I remember was feeling something scratching me. It pulled me out of the car, and I hit the grass. I must have passed out. All I remember is waking up on the ground when the sun was already up. I had scratches all over my body and a huge bite mark on my leg. The bite mark was not from a human. It was actually from a dog-like creature. It had fangs that came out of its mouth that penetrated my skin deep enough to where I needed stitches. The one thing I remember the most about that night was the smell. It smelled like decay and rotten meat. 2 weeks later, after that incident, I moved out of that trailer and I now live in the city in an apartment complex surrounded by people and security. Please remember that if you are afraid of the woods or afraid of being alone, never ever move to the country. Thank you for listening to Master of Horror. If you like what you've heard, then please like, share, and subscribe for more true stories like these. I thank you so much for listening. And from Master of Horror, good night, my friends. And don't forget to leave the nightlight on.